Hi, I'm Jamillah Knowles, writer, illustrator, and AI expert, and I'm chatting with Jennifer Kite-Powell about artificial intelligence, art, and a few other things you might not be expecting. To hear more, listen to Jennifer's excellent podcast, Tiny Little Victories, which you can find on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Anchor FM.
Hey, welcome back to Tiny Little Victories. I am not sure we can get a much better lead in than the one we just got from Jamillah Knowles. And it's a little teaser for you guys to stick around and hear some of the things that she touched on. We touched on so many things. Um, and she is such an amazing person. Like, that's why the name of this episode is The Ingenious Adventures of Jamillah Knowles. And I'm not going to say too much because I give her a big send up in this episode because she has done so many amazing things, from a BBC host and producer, working at Thomson Reuters, like blog editor at the Huffington Post. That's just a few. I'm going to save some more for later. But you guys just buckle up, okay? It was a spirited, cathartic, inspiring conversation. And I got to tell you, this is exactly why I started this podcast, to have conversations. And Jamillah brings up a lot of really interesting points in here about conversation, about taking interest in something. Does it necessarily mean you love it or hate it? So I'm loving this. So I don't know what time zone you're in. Maybe it's a glass of wine time. Maybe it's a glass of champagne time. Maybe it's a cup of coffee time, or put on the kettle to make some tea and sit back and enjoy this podcast and this conversation with the ingenious Jamillah Knowles. Hey folks, welcome back to Tiny Little Victories. I am still your host, Jennifer Kite-Powell, and today I have like a superstar here to talk with us today, Jamillah Knowles. Hello, Jamillah.
Hi, Jennifer. Wow, you are it's like the number one hype woman. I'm going to take a little clip of this and make it my ringtone.
I love it. You should do that if LinkedIn had like a little snippet you could put in there about a send up. Yeah,
Nice.
I'm about to send you up some more because I want to like set you up so people can be like, "What is this lady
Oh
all
boy.
about?" So you are so fascinating to me. I've known you for a while, from first because I was, like I said, I was on the dark side of things. I think when we met, I was doing like comms and content writing, but you are a writer, you're an illustrator, you have been a producer with the BBC, you worked at Thomson Reuters, you were actually the host of, I think, is it Outriders for Radio
Yeah,
5
it
Live?
was. Yeah.
You worked at Etsy and PR and comms for like all of Europe.
I
And
did.
you also were the blogs editor, hello, for Huffington Post. And I just want to, can we just stop for a second? Everybody, do you see this amazing woman? These are
Oh
all the
my.
things she's done. And now she is an illustrator also, and she's become an AI image expert. And this is kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to pick her brain.
Mm.
And so, yeah. So tell us, what the heck? What this journey? This
I
is a
just
journey.
it is a journey. I think it's the inability to say no, or maybe I don't know. The fact that I'm getting older means I'm saying no quite a lot. But yeah, certainly through my 20s and 30s, I was like, yeah, okay, what are
Yeah.
we doing a thing? All right, yeah, sure, all right then. And yeah, it was a blast. I can't. Yeah, it's hard work, but you can't turn it
Yeah.
down.
I no, you can't. I think it's a really good point that you say in your 20 and 30s. You just don't know the word no, right? You're like, I'm going to do
Hmm.
it. It's going to take me someplace else. You love the challenge. And I think one of the things that maybe people forget about here is that when you were at the BBC as a producer think in 2008, BBC had just adopted a couple of years early their whole platform around user generated content, right, for
Hmm.
advertising. So
Yeah.
you've literally been at the forefront of what is now a polluted river of crap, I think.
Yeah, I have to apologize to people. All of those people, they used to send me out as like an envoy to different parts of the news organizations. They tell them about Twitter. And of course, they were just
Really?
like, get away from me. I've got a radio show to do, or, and like they make beautiful work. They're very focused and I could understand it. But there were
Yeah.
some funny times. There were one or two people who won't be named who were just like, oh, this
Yeah.
is just a fad. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, sure. See you later then.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Bye-bye. See you on
and
that
now
worm farm in New
it's
Zealand.
yeah, enjoy. Your pivot in your career. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's yeah. I mean, it was frustrating. It was interesting, and yeah, as you
Mm.
say, it's changed so much.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that like now I play with it occasionally, and
Oh.
I've gone from sort of saying to people, get your strategy right, do this, do X, Y, Z, and that's fine if they've got like a persona online or a business. But for everybody else, I'm like, if you don't want to do it, don't do it.
I
Fine.
love that. I love that because you're right. It must have been a very strange experience for you, like tromping around. Whoops, wrong word there.
How
Tromping
very dare
around.
you?
Yeah. Oh, how dare I bring that word up on this? Can I just say, like, I love to say things like, hey, that apple trumps that orange, right? And
Yeah.
now I'm really afraid to say it.
Well, in the UK, I think it's like kids say it a bit more, but to Trump is to fart.
Oh my God. I did
Yeah,
not know that.
yeah. I
I
don't
feel
I
like
don't
I
think
have
it's
an,
universal. Maybe it's regional, but yeah.
no, I feel like I have an obligation to make that a thing here. Okay. Putting that down in the notes. Okay. Yeah, so you had to go around and you had to convince these people because Twitter had just started basically what in like 2007. And what was some of the responses other than these two people? Did they understand it? I mean, because people forget how much of a learning curve that was. You've been on since the beginning. I only got on because I had a crush on some guy in Bratislava.
Oh,
So
nice. As good
and
as
to that
reason as any.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just like, hey, my daughter ate a daisy today because nobody really knew what to do with Twitter, did they?
No,
Right?
no.
I mean, nobody
Yeah, I
really
mean,
knew.
it was. I mean, it used to make your phone die because you used to get the text
Yes.
messages and it would just be going and going and going and like I was chatting to people I didn't know, and it still had that kind
Yeah.
of feeling that maybe you experienced this too. I don't know, maybe we're like ladies of a certain age, and it's like
We
in
are. We are. That's
AOL
awesome
chat,
age.
and you just be like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
I'm talking to someone in Japan. This is amazing,"
Yes.
And so we would
But
just talk at people. Like I think we were far less sensitive to stranger danger or anything like that.
yeah,
We were just like,
totally.
"Hi, who are
Yeah.
you? Let's be friends." We were like golden
Yeah.
retrievers online.
Yeah, we were. And that's a really great I mean, you're right. You would be on definitely AOL, and you would. There'd be somebody in China. You'd be like, I'm talking to well, not China. I'm talking to someone in Japan, and it was so novel, and it felt you were so connected to the world in a good way. And now
Mm.
it doesn't feel like you're so connected to the world in a good way. But this is sort of something that kind of reminds me of when video cameras first came out. The real people were running around with the big ones, and then they had the hand cams, and if you see old footage, especially of like me or my friends, nobody was like nobody really what to do with being filmed, right? Wasn't you
Mm.
weren't
Mm.
performing really. It
Yeah.
was just this way to document things. And that to me is a massive change to what we see now with, performance and performing for the camera.
Oh yeah, I mean
Um
it's so polished now. It's just
yeah,
I think I've
yeah.
got a video somewhere on like Vimeo where I'm making some scrambled eggs. Like I don't know what to do, so I
Yes.
had to find something to do. And so I made
I
some
love
scrambled
that.
eggs and I sort of narrated it so that I could work out how this
Uh,
thing would work. I have no idea who
oh my
watched it
god.
and just like what I was doing but now, the idea of I mean, I don't know, probably like a lot of people, I'm amazed by things like makeup tutorials. I'm like, how can you I can't even
Yes.
see my own face without a camera in the morning, so I don't put makeup on because I work from home anyway. But
Yes, yes.
like, how do you like just the amount of coordination and confidence is I don't
Yes.
admirable in some
Yes.
ways, but in other ways, I kind of think, well, a load of obviously my teen years.
Yeah.
There may have been text-based stuff online. It was a bit
Mm.
slow, or there was like a mud or a text-based room.
Mhm.
But you couldn't see my face, and it just I didn't feel as exposed, I guess. So
Yeah, no,
I'm kind of
that's a great
glad.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think it's different. I think the girl that played Punky Brewster on that
Oh my
show.
god, she is Soleil Moonfry.
Yes, that's right, Salil
I
Moonfry.
oh,
Good,
I loved
that's
her
such a cool
so
name.
much. I wanted to
Me
be Punky
too.
Brewster.
Me too. And she went and made I think it came out like a year ago or 2 years ago. It's like a documentary on, she had all of this footage of her as a teenager, that because they had just gotten this like handheld video camera. And it was literally like boxes and boxes of her life, basically her
Mm.
friends hanging out. I think like one of the Phoenix Boys was on there, but it
Oh,
was, she was commenting on this saying like it was a different time, much like you were
yeah,
saying, that you just didn't, you were just, you were just sharing these with your friends, or you were just being together through this new medium which you didn't know was a window to reflect anything other than like just enjoying good times. And
yeah.
it's a really interesting documentary. I highly recommend it because you've touched on three things that she touches on in there about how sort of this innocent time, like I'm glad we didn't have that. I do also watch makeup tutorials because I wanted to be one of the Lichtenberg girls for Halloween.
Well,
So I
nice.
was
Yep.
like, how do you do that makeup? And how do they do that? I don't know the verse in the mirror. I mean, I did it. It turned out okay, but I was exhausted just watching the video, just let
Yeah.
alone to put 1,000 dots on your face.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So no, it's yeah, it is very different. I'm not going to say. I mean, there are a lot of people who are going to argue, oh, there's a loss of innocence, and we're not going
Oh
to go
yeah.
back. We can't shove
Yeah.
it all back in the
No.
box. So that's that. But you just kind
Exactly.
of hope that they're feeling resilient, And I feel so
Yeah.
old, but I'm just like, young people, just take
Yeah.
care of yourself, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please, please. Well, my nephew is and my niece, they are out of college. One's recently out of college, and he actually, both of them don't really. They used to do a lot of social media before COVID, and then they just sort of stopped.
Mm.
And even one of them just wants a phone that doesn't connect to the internet. It's like, I
Yeah.
just had enough. I've had enough. And so
Yeah.
I think maybe to your point, like just protect your, do make the right choices could be happening. Could be happening. So what was the journey that you took to get, were you always an illustrator, or was this something that emerged after your hosting, producing, corporate side of things? When did this like come to the surface?
Yeah, well, I my first undergrad degree was like history of art and fine art and film, which now I'm
That's
like,
amazing.
it sounds awesome, doesn't it? And I dropped out. What a waste! I'm like, I could have spent 3 years sitting on my backside, thinking very deeply, taking myself very seriously, and watching all these movies and making paintings and stuff. But I'd started to work for a newspaper, and I was in a year of students where I was like working a pub every holiday. I was working at the newspaper trying to pay my way through this degree. And I had colleagues on the course, other students who were just like, oh my God, my dad won't buy me a car. And I was like, I am eating noodles.
Yes.
Like, what? I was, considering eating my
Yeah.
paint because I am
Yeah.
hungry. And I
There's
thought, I
nourishment
can't,
in there.
yeah, I was thinking, I can't, I don't, I wasn't into it. And I was like, God, this is really expensive.
Yeah.
And it's another thing that I like to be an old fart about is to say to young people, do you know what? If you're not ready, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because the pressure continues, and if take a year out, take 10 years out, do whatever you want. You
That's
can
such good advice.
still
That's
do
such good
something
advice.
else, and you'll be
Yeah.
ahead of the game with like your work experience by
Totally,
miles.
totally. And I don't
Yeah.
understand. This is another thing. I know a teen who had the similar thing. She had wanted to go to college. She thought that's what she wanted, but
Mm,
she took a year off and she went and got a wildlife wilderness a rescue certificate.
nice.
And it's, yeah, and she kind of changed what she wants to do. And I think that's really good advice. Like, I think people are just sort of on this automatic path, right? Go to college, get this. Maybe they also want to sit on their butts and watch films, but those are the wrong people. We don't want those people if they're complaining their dad won't buy them a car. Like,
Oh,
do we
it
really want
was,
those people in the
yeah.
art world? No.
I just felt it was a very privileged year, and it was a
Yeah.
privilege for me to be there as well. But I wasn't digging it, and
Yeah.
also I kind of, I mean, there are other young artists that I am amazed by who have amazing things to say and they make incredibly powerful art. But I had nothing to say for myself. So I was learning like
Mm.
technical skills,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what I wanted to paint. What did I want to, paint my feelings about the
Yeah.
Radiohead album? Like, and I was like,
That
no.
would be good. That would be good. I would like to see that.
Some very dark sketch. I've got some
Yes.
sketchbooks from that time, and I'm like, oh, cheer up, come on. I felt very seriously about things, obviously, but
yeah,
Yeah.
I liked the pragmatism and the pace and the interestingness of working for newspapers. So I worked as a photographer for about 8 years.
Mm.
Um, and it was intimidating and interesting and a bit wild, and like some of it was pre-digital revolution, so it was on film. So if you didn't get it, like if you didn't get that news photo, it's not going to happen again. So like
Yeah,
no pressure,
that's such a different time. Like you're right, that pace, like pre-digital. I love that you said that because you're right. If you didn't get it, there's no story. Like you're done.
Yeah, yeah. So, you kind of had to really not screw it up.
Yeah.
And then what was it? Oh, then into radio and stuff like this. So obviously I went from a visual medium to an audio one with no visuals, but I kept drawing, and
Yeah.
I used to do these little cartoons. Everyone would be get like, birthday cards and stuff, and it was fine. But I was heading into sort of technology and stuff, and like my dad taught me to code when I was about 7 or 8.
What?
So
That's so
the,
cool.
well, the Commodore 64 has this like huge place in my heart. I don't want one. I know people
Aw.
collect them and stuff, but
Yeah.
that was where I was learning to do stuff and make machines work, and it was all under my power. I was like, God, this is amazing. I can make it do stuff, useless stuff, but still stuff. And looking at how games worked and stuff. And so that had always been in the background. And then I was working, reporting on tech and stuff, and I knew that I knew my stuff. But to be honest, part of the reason, and I'm not saying this should be everyone's reason, I did a degree in artificial intelligence kind of to shut people up a bit.
No, I love that. I mean, why not? That's good enough motivation. Like,
Yeah.
what is it to shut them up because they didn't believe in it, or because they didn't think that you should be doing it, or that it wasn't
Yeah.
going to be viable in anything?
I think it was more that it was like, oh, she's into some tech stuff, but she's just like a
Oh.
mouthpiece and she doesn't understand how it works.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
was
So
like,
I can
well,
say it.
yeah.
No, you may not want to say it, but so basically it's a lot of bias against a woman being in tech.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
And just, it was frustrating, and I was like, I'm just going to do this. And, I have a long fuse, but after that point, I just like
There was no
go for
fuse.
something. Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah.
well, that's it. I'm going to do it. And I just signed up to do this like degree.
Love
And
that.
they were like dark tea times of the soul, because, as an art and literature student, they were going to make me
Yeah.
do an entire term of maths. And I was like, oh shit.
That's
Like I
nowhere
really
near
didn't think
what I
I'd
want to be doing.
yeah, I was like, why would I do this? Like I understood logic and I understood programming, but I was like, why are you going to make me do maths again? But because it had some context, I actually found
Yeah.
out that maths is kind of quite beautiful. Like if I
Oh
was
my
talking to
gosh.
my teenage self, she would tell me to just get in the bin. Like, no, this
Yeah. Yeah.
maths is
Yeah.
horrible. Don't do
Yeah.
this. And like actual tears of frustration as a teenager because I didn't think I could do it. And then
Yeah.
so many, decades on, I was like, actually, you can ace this. This is great.
I love
Um,
this, but this comes back to your point of like, do it when you're ready.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And having that bit sort of confidence that, I'd already started to work in a career where I was
Mm-hmm.
constantly trying things that I didn't know how to do.
Getting
Just
out of
in
your
a
comfort zone
situation.
and just jumping
Yeah,
in.
exactly. And, you're doing like live radio broadcasts and stuff like that. Like, you just make it work.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, in which case I can do this. But it was a part-time degree. It took what seemed like forever, but it was worth it. It was worth it getting those basics down, the ethics, the mathematics, the sort of behind the scenes stuff, and then watching it all explode now is actually kind of gratifying.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, that's one of the things I know we had sort of like one of the things I did want to ask you was you you now get to see a front row seat to this when you were here to the table before everyone is talking about it at dinner and doesn't even know what they're talking about. So how does that feel like?
Oh, smug. Yeah.
Yeah, good. I like that. I was hoping I'd see a word in there somewhere. Super smug,
I'm
because
super
I
smug.
feel like people have sort of lost their minds a little bit. I know it's a hype
Yeah.
cycle, but what are you finding from your studies to what you're seeing people talk about? I mean, you could probably call out a lot of people, because I feel there's a lot of people just like blah blah AI blah. I'm like, do you even know what you're talking
Oh
about?
yeah,
Just
yeah.
settle down a bit.
That is actually one of the most accurate descriptions of what I've seen about a lot of online writing about AI, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or as I don't know. I mean, people who know me know I'm a bit of an ardent feminist, and I do come up with the phrases that you've heard before. But instead of saying you're wrong, I have to tell people sometimes, oh, have you thought maybe that might not quite be the way you see it? And what I'm
Yeah.
meaning is like, that is garbage. Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking? Like, it doesn't work that way. What on earth are you talking about? You're going to make a
I like
fool of yourself.
I like that you call yourself an ardent feminist. I love that. And then I like how I mean, in a way, it's like, are you sure that's going to work that way? I
Mm,
probably, if I had enough knowledge, I'd be like, you guys, I don't have any knowledge at all, but that's not going to work.
yeah, yeah. But it just,
I
I've walked out of meetings before because I couldn't, well, I couldn't handle myself diplomatically, put it that way.
Yeah.
Um,
I
well,
love that.
just the usual things where some men, not all men, I know all the hashtags are going to
Yeah.
come into this, have repeated what I've said almost in the same words.
Oh my
And
God.
I've gone
as their own.
as their own, yeah.
Oh,
And I've said, well, yeah, that's what I just said. And I've been tutted at for saying it, for calling it out. And some
what
meetings
is
I just got up out of my chair and left.
I think that is literally the best strategy, because I think that if sometimes I'm just appalled and then amazed that I know I'm going to say this still happens in a way. It's like, how can you hear somebody say something in the room, like next to you, and then say it again, literally, as if you're
Yeah.
the first person that said it? It's remarkable how often it happens between men and women, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And it's sort of, I guess maybe there's a lack of self-awareness there. Like sometimes it's, in some ways, it's so brazen that it's almost funny. Like you just want to go, why am I not? Am I in a sitcom right now? This is hilarious. Where's the camera? But other times it's just, yeah. I think on the other side of it, if you don't want to engage with someone who's being pretty stupid about stuff and they think they want to say that you don't know, and then I'll go, okay, fine. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, actually, yes, that's just like, don't come to the table. Like, just sort of decouple yours. I find that decoupling seems to be a good strategy I've been using lately. It's sort of like letting go of the mic, like, sure, okay, you go right ahead and do that.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's just, yeah. I mean, I don't do it with clients. Obviously, if I'm consulting for someone, you got to tell them the truth and how things work and how you're seeing stuff happen. But yeah, there are other situations. Yeah, exactly.
So what sort of AI projects are you working on that you can talk about, and what excites you the most about? And then I still want to circle back to this Red Riding Hood comment, because I think this sounds really interesting. So what sort of things? What are you working on that you're excited about with AI?
The latest thing that I'm excited about, because it took me back to like crying over an AI paper at one point for a neural network, because I was like, oh God, I can't remember, I can't do this. And now doing something really fun is that I've been so I was consulting on a sort of audience advisory thing for an organization called Blast Theory. They're an arts organization, and they've been using AI with live cats.
What? I love this.
Yeah. And
how?
Yeah, that's pretty much how I came to it. I was like, who, what? And I was like, man, if I could have told myself when I was having like the dark tea time of the soul that I could get through this and then have this much fun thinking about stuff. I was like, incredible. They're doing this incredible project called Cat Royale. And they're putting I know, they're putting some cats that get along with each other, like all of the ethical stuff, they have got it down. So don't write to me, please write to Jennifer. She loves it when you complain. But so they've got these beautiful cats in this like cat utopia environment. So there's soft things and play things, and they get fed and all these things. And in the middle of the room there's a robotic arm. And now this is one of the hills I will die on, because, and it'll come up when we talk about images of AI. Not all robots have AI involved, but there is AI involved in this project. It's just not inside the robot. It's like that meme that's going around at the moment with the dogs. I'm going to bring this down to my level. There's this like dog video on TikTok at the moment where it says something like, not every pee-pee time is a poo-poo time, but all poo-poo times are pee-pee times. Yeah. Okay, not all AI is in a robot. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like this is a PSA for people, right? Here's a PSA number 1 with Jamillah. Not all AI is in robots. And I'm glad you said that, because everybody now thinks that AI is in every single robot. Not true.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's actually just, it's floating around in your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not that exciting.
The people,
So, but they've got this robot arm, and they're using computer vision and AI to observe what the cats are doing. And so when the robotic arm is programmed to, I don't know, like shake a feather at the cat or something, and they can see if the cats like it or they don't, or whether they engage with it or they don't, and then build that kind of visual information, so that then the AI system can learn from itself, and then present the cats with like the best kind of entertainment, I guess.
I love this because I think that this is very good use of AI, right? You're
Mm.
learning about, first of all, about, I have a cat, so I'm very interested in this. And I think that learning about behavior, there's so much we don't know. And I think cats are fascinating subjects because of, you can, you can Google 1,000,001 cat animal behavioralists, right? Like if they do their tail this way, it means this, it means that. But this is a great way to use computer vision and AI to really understand behavior. But I love the part, I want to emphasize the part that you said that then it can learn from what it absorbs, right? It can learn from that and build on that. And I think that iterative part of AI and that learning part is what's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, to see. I mean, the project hasn't completely launched yet. Believe me, I'll be all over online going, everybody look at this.
Yeah, and I will. You tell me when and we'll put it out. We
Well,
can
yeah.
talk it through here.
But to see it actually running will be great. And some of the early tests that they've seen, I hope they won't mind me saying it, but at one point they were testing it with a cat who's completely engaged with this like feather on a stick type toy and robot. And then the robot stopped because technology does that.
Yeah.
And the cat was like, oh, I'm not having this. So it just took the toy off the robot and just ran off with it. And I was like, there you go. That's a cat. That's like, I'll do it my
total
way or
cat.
not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need this arm.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks for the arm, but if it doesn't work, I'm going to take it. Actually, I just think that is a beautiful example of behavior. And I think, I do believe, I've said this twice now, and I guess I'll say it again because you're the person to say it to. Do you remember when the New York Times reporter was having that conversation with Bing about whether or not he was happy or he had a really good time with his partners? That whole conversation of that the AI was arguing with him, and I wasn't upset about the AI arguing. I was more upset with the fact that we humans were upset. It's like you're actually going to be upset by this, like this is so upsetting to you, like use your brain a little bit, human. Like it's not really real, it's just at this point just software doing what it's supposed to be doing. And that is what I think the disconnect is. To me, you're talking about a real application of AI and computer vision, behavior learning, animal behavior, and then we're upset over the fact that this AI is questioning this guy's happiness with his partner on a Valentine's date. He probably wasn't happy to be on that Valentine's date. And maybe it just touched too close to the heart. I don't know. But I do think I feel like there's a big disconnect between what humans understand about the usage of AI. And this is a perfect example of how it can be used to benefit everybody.
Yeah. I mean, there are some good, I mean, there are obviously there's a ton of issues. There's a ton of legal and ethical issues around AI. I think this is why I still find it so interesting. And it can be harmful. It can exclude minority groups. There's a long way to go. And also, to be honest, quite a lot of the tools that come out are still crap. Like, it's
so
just
true.
not,
I mean,
they're not good.
That's so new. It's so new.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of pitches from people like, hey, let's see which AI is better. I'm like, it just came out yesterday. Like, calm down. Like, we don't need to, we're at the beginning of everything.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I feel like there's a very divisive environment online. And it is the way at the moment online to love or hate something. And I don't either of those things. I'm just interested in it. And interest doesn't necessarily indicate love for something. I'm so interested in threats to my being because I want to keep them away.
Yes, exactly.
So, it's
that's a really profound statement there, Jamillah. Like, just because you are interested in something doesn't mean that you love it or hate it. I think that is a nuance that is completely missed today.
Yeah, no, it is tough to kind of talk about these things. And even like the word nuance now seems somewhat loaded because it's attached to people who are not being nuanced, and they're using nuance to argue with other people who have a different point of view. It's just an explosion of complexity. And then in the middle of this, you've got a machine who's just spitting out words. And I'm like, this is, if you describe this in an early sci-fi fantasy short story. People go, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, no, it doesn't, but it's real. You know?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've read enough sci-fi to like always think, I always get my eyebrow goes up a little. But how do you think, like, is there any way around this? I mean, because I just feel like humans aren't ready. I just don't feel, I feel like there's, like you said, there's so much complexity out there, nuance, very good point. Not even sure that even works anymore. I
Mhm.
don't know if we're capable of, like you said, we can't put it all back in the box, but what is it going to take for us to sort of have a better awareness and conversation again? Because I think there's not any conversation anymore, or as
No, I
much as there
mean,
used to be.
yeah, I mean the social end of things, I don't know, is my profound answer.
Yeah.
The complexity of AI and things like this. Yeah, I think you do need the certain amount of fire behind observing things. Like, there's a legal matter with AI generated art of like which images are being used to generate this and why aren't those artists being
Mm.
paid or acknowledged. And the idea of like literally typing in a living artist's name so you can make work that's like theirs and then you can sell it.
Yeah,
No, it's not good.
that's not right. Yeah,
No.
that's not good. So that, I mean, with from the certificate, the study, the class, the degree that you got there, I mean, did you ever think that you would be right in the middle of this then as someone that's an AI image expert? I mean, this is troubling that you can type that person's name in and the art will be generated. I mean, that's going to be lawyers, that's going to be
Hmm.
lawsuits, that's like copyright. Like,
Yeah.
how how is that gonna? Any ideas how we're gonna get around that?
I don't know. I think there is a much wider um, ecosystem issue about this, and this is one of
Mm-hmm.
my favorite tropes. Is it's an ecosystem. It's not just one
Yeah.
person.
Okay.
So there needs to be legislation, and you and I have reported on all kinds of technology where there's just no legislation, and something
Yeah.
runs amok, and people get hurt,
Yeah.
and then you have to have a legal case, and then you've got precedents. And that's
Yeah.
unfortunately how things run. I don't know how you run things otherwise. Like, I don't have the solution, but
Yeah.
so it needs legislation and it needs responsibility. And we're living in a time where there are big tech companies which I kind of love hate.
Yeah. Exactly.
I
It's a love
just
hate relationship.
Yeah,
That's so true.
I
Yeah.
admire what they're doing in so many ways. They can do such a lot of good, and at the same time, when you need to ask them, hey, wait a minute, I think this is not right, suddenly
Mm-hmm.
there's like a tumbleweed, and
Yeah.
and you're on your own, and
Yeah.
that's
They
not
can't hear
right
you.
either.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so the responsibility needs to be there. Responsibility needs to be in governance and also society, and also including different diverse groups. I
Yeah.
think you would make fewer mistakes, like facial recognition.
Yeah. Oh,
How
it's
about
terrible.
we had like more people of color when that was being developed to realize much sooner that you weren't going to be able to see these people, that they were going to be excluded,
Oh,
and
that
how
whole,
awful
yeah,
it was going to be.
it's so incredibly awful. And I can't
Mm,
remember, and I would love to have her on the show, but she was the woman who actually sort of was the beginning of that, where she was pointing all these things out when she was at Google, and they
mhm.
eventually fired her. But
Yeah.
she speaks out a lot. She's been on a lot of podcasts. She talks about how, why there are no subsets of people with different colored faces, and that how is it okay that those were identified that way? And that, a couple of years ago, I was at the Web Summit speaking about AI, but on a small stage, and talking about this bias, like this incredible amount of bias that goes in. And if you still look at AI scientists or AI data people, they're
Mhm.
predominantly white.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and it
And
doesn't
what
instigate
does
any
it?
form of change, or it
No,
doesn't
none.
instigate much positive. Did you see there was a news story that I can't stop thinking about this? I'm a little bit obsessed, and I'm hoping that it will just kind of go away, because it feels too awful to think that that actually happened or that it was progressing. But there was an organization that wanted to solve the problem. And I hate that, because it's so dismissive. As just say, let's just solve the problem of minority people. I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Let's just solve the problem. I
Let's
know
just
it's
solve the
you can't
problem,
even.
Yeah. But so they were saying, there aren't enough images of people of color going into these AI image generator things. So we'll even that up by generating some images of Black people and putting that. And I was like, so you're not going to acknowledge the real people and invite them into the conversation or include them. You're going to invent some
Exactly.
fantasy people. And I
Exactly.
was like, oh, it's just so insulting on so many levels. And also it creates a loop. Like it doesn't work. Like technically that's
Yeah.
not, it's an Ouroboros. It's just shoved its face up its own backside. Like it doesn't work. But
Yeah. And it's amazing that we would like completely lose that thread where we would, like you said, make up a whole different group when there's like so many people you can invite into this group.
Yeah.
I think her name, I think just thinking of her name was Timet Jabru. That was the name.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also Joy Bulamwini, I think it was at MIT.
Yes.
Did some of the facial recognition stuff and just, yeah.
But they're still not listening. Like that's the thing that's so troubling is like, here you have all these women, by the way, and they're being dismissed or marginalized or like shut down because they're bringing up just facts. These are just facts, which are easy to address, as you said, with getting right people to the table. And I think that's that love-hate relationship you said that you had with, big tech companies. I interviewed another person last week, Chris Brown, who was a big startup wise guy, and he's from the States. But anyway, he has a lot of feelings about exactly what you just said about these big tech companies with their agenda. They've done a lot of good, but if you question that agenda, it still doesn't change, right? Oh well, we can't do that because this, we can't do that because of this, and that is, I think, part of the problem. So is how do you get those conversations to take place? How do you elevate them? And how do you get the right people to the table?
Yeah.
That would make a big difference, because I'm a little worried about these data sets that people are using. And that was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I was at the Web Summit and somebody from IBM was there and they were saying, yeah, these aren't great. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're not great. And I'm sure they don't like me repeating that. Sorry, IBM. Also not a sponsor. But yeah, really big debates and conversations I would like to hear more of. I would personally love to turn on a podcast. I would love to read more about it. I would love to see a show about it. Because
it's getting those voices,
we just have to make the change.
Yeah, I mean, and like, here we are, like two white women discussing
again,
and it's like, oh my God, we're still like not the right people, but at least maybe we can try, and I want to hear from the right people. Yeah, still not the right people. The thing is, these are the problems these are the problems that are, I don't know if you've ever had the reaction where you kind of say something in a meeting or, if you're consulting for a startup or something, and you unfortunately say the thing that is like from the Emperor's New Clothes. You're just like, this is not going to work. Like, I'm really sorry. And they're like, we don't want your negativity. I'm like, okay.
But it's not right. That's also, I think, also a bias, right? Because I think that when people say, I don't want your negativity, I say, no, this is reality. This is not being negative. This is being reality. It's like when someone says to me, you might be too emotional. I say, thanks.
Oh yeah, I am way because I'm like,
emotional. And I always say thank you, and people are like do a little flinch. I'm like, that's so nice of you to say that. I love it that I feel these things and I'm passionate about these things, and they just blank face you. They just blank because they don't know how to reply to that.
What do they want to hear instead? Like, yo, you're right, I don't care.
Exactly. Actually, that's a good answer back to them.
Yeah,
you might be too blunt. Well, maybe you're not blunt enough. Also, did you mean direct?
Yeah, I meant bossy. That's one of my favorite ones for the ladies. Yeah.
Oh yeah, bossy. Yeah, bossy. Yeah. I have also heard recently I overheard this. Some executive at a big tech company in Scandinavia said to some woman of power, said, "Stop matronizing me."
Oh, nice.
I was like, whoa, wow, turn it around.
Yeah, like, thank you for the opportunity to do that. Yeah.
To matronize you, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I thought, how intimidated did this guy feel that he had to use the word matronize? And at the same time, I was like, good use of the word. Good use of the word. So there's no nuance there, obviously. See, doesn't work either.
Well, maybe he needed some help. Maybe he needs someone to like femsplain it to him,
I think we should, another word we should bring out, femsplain, because this goes back to your point earlier too about saying something and then the guy next to you is like saying the exact same thing and you're sitting there like, hey, I just said that. Where's the rewind tape?
Yeah.
We got some good words here. We got femsplain. And I tell you, that's top of my list now for Friday.
I'm going to use matronize all the time.
Matronize is another one, right?
I kind of love it.
Yeah, it's good, right? And then we know Trump means fart in like
Yes.
slang. In what part of England? Or just all of England?
No, I'm not sure about all of it. I think it might be regional. I
Like
certainly know that there were
Bristol?
some kids. Yeah, well, I'm getting used to Bristol. I'm relatively
Okay.
new here, but
Yeah. How
yeah.
did you? I was going to ask you about that. I think Bristol's lovely. It's got those beautiful colored row houses along the
Mm-hmm.
edge, and
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful, beautiful town.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's arty. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting.
Very arty. Very
Yeah,
arty. That's good for
yeah.
you.
Oh, it's great. It's great, and it's also it's quite relaxed.
Yeah.
Like I love London, but ooh, yeah, you are
Ooh
running,
wee.
running, running, and also all
It's
of your salary
bad.
goes into your rent.
Oh my God. It's terrible, isn't it? It's at, or just, I remember when I lived there, excuse me, when I lived there, I was like, oh my God, it's so expensive. Like just a
Mm.
bottle of water, but worse, just, go to have your hair done. And I can't, worse prices than New York for sure. But I'd have to go so often because my hairdresser said, hey, do you know that in London especially, there's more cocaine in the water of any other country in the world? And I'm like, is this why my hair is really brittle? I was really concerned about the cocaine use in London when she
I
told
don't
me
know.
this. I'm like, what?
My hair's always been unpredictable, but I didn't think that was the reason why.
That's why. That's why. Is your hair better in Bristol?
It's a bit more chilled out, a bit calmer.
See, your hair is a bit calmer. You're going to hang up now and think my hair is softer. You're right. It's a lot calmer because I have curly hair like you, and
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get my hair to do anything in London. I was like going in all the time, having these expensive like softening conditioners, and she goes, "Oh, it's because the water." I'm like, "Okay, hard water, I get it." She goes, "No, because of the cocaine." I'm like, "Wow." Good job, London. Good job.
Oh
I
my
did look it
God.
up, and it is true. Like the percentage of cocaine in the water, I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. I
Oh,
won't name
just doesn't
names, but
surprise
I
me.
was out to dinner with somebody in Shoreditch, and they popped out for a second. I thought to smoke something, a cigarette, and the girl goes, "Oh yeah, she's being your coke dealer." I'm like, is
Oh.
that? I'm sorry. Is it 1972? Like, I'm sorry. What's happening here? They just like right up. Yeah. I'm like, they just flipped it off like it was nothing. And then my little brain was like, oh yeah, cocaine in water. Okay. But it was
Wow.
such a shock to see it treated so casually and talk about it. And I'm like, you don't talk about that. You go in a bathroom stall and discuss it. Like you don't outwardly do it at a really nice restaurant in Shoreditch.
No.
But
Wow.
I'm glad you're in Bristol. I think that's really, I know. Talk about a tangent. How about that?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's far more relaxed here, but there's still also like data centers and
Yeah.
technology stuff going off and the really great robotics
Yes.
center with the
Yes.
university here too. So yeah,
Yeah. That's a
it's a
good
good
place for
blend.
you then.
Yeah,
Robotics,
yeah.
art. I think that I get a lot of people pitching me from Bristol from the university for robotics, and I'm always very
Mhm.
impressed. Um, I know we've talked a lot, but I do want to ask you about your why you want why you think illustrators want to secretly do a translation of Red Riding Hood. I love this. I don't know why this fairy tale thing stuck in my head, but where did that come in your brain? Because there's an amazing illustration that you put up that I absolutely love. You're very talented. So where's this fairy tale thing coming from? I feel like this could be a thing, like a project or an art installation or something.
Oh, it would be really fun to follow up, but I mean, there have
Yeah, it
been
would.
so many sort of translations of Red Riding Hood. I think she's one of those icons. I mean, certainly in Western cultures, in European
Yeah.
culture, it's very popular. She's easy to recognize. There's a beautifully illustrated book, and people will have to look it up because my mind fails me. But it's the Red
Okay.
Riding Hood story told in like a series of dots. So in the forest dots are green, and the wolf is like grey and black, and Red Riding Hood is red, as you'd expect. But it's just this grid of dots, and when you look at it, and someone tells you Red Riding Hood, you go, oh yeah, of course it is. So if it can be broken down into even those very simple symbols, then it's a really powerful way to communicate things. And as I say, there's things like Company of Wolves. That's a great movie for
Yeah.
young feminist minds, if you like that one.
Yeah.
And just so many different translations. And of course, you can flip it back and forth about who's got the power in that relationship, what it actually means, what it's meant to
I love
represent.
this. I
Yeah.
love this. And you're right. Like she is an ardent feminist, Red Riding Hood.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, she was a bit
I'm
late for her grandma, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't always be there on time. I mean, face
yeah.
it. I mean, she had stuff to do. But I did a quick scan on the internet before we talked, and I was looking at the massive, to your point, like interpretation of Red Riding Hood across like the internet universe. And you're right, like that compilation, would be an amazing art project. And I would imagine that AI could really play a part in that.
I'm sure that it would be one of the easier things to generate this because there's so many images already existing.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure it would gather all of the art by those artists. So, I mean, I have to prefer discussing with artists how they came to their own conclusions because I quite like that human
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a collation of all those different translations. And also, I mean, there's so much into it: gender politics, race politics, societal, like there's a lot going on in that
Yeah.
story that
There
fits so
is
many
a lot
different
going
times.
on.
There's people who
Yeah.
translate it as like a rape story, as a survivor story,
Yeah.
and look at her strengths or lack of, weaknesses, or, does she tame the wolf? Does she not? So there's loads going on there. But yeah, it'd be a massive project. If anybody wants to send me a lot of money to do that as a PhD,
I love
then
that.
you know where to find me.
Let's make a PSA right now to say, is anybody out there listening? Then I think that if anybody wants to see this is like, you're right. There's a lot, everybody. This is still the PSA number 2. Send Jamillah a lot of money to do this project because I think, one, it would tick every box for art, for technology, for, like you said, gender politics, race politics. This could be big.
It'd
The
be
next thing you
years of
know,
work.
we're going to
Yeah.
see you at the Tate, in Turbine Hall.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Do you
Yeah, it
know
would
what
be.
I'd like to get into the Tate is an image, and it wouldn't have to be by me. Any of the other artists that do this is the better images of AI. Is to
Okay.
just get a piece in there to describe. I guess I mean, if you're making art to reflect the times, then art about AI I find interesting. Not so much in some way. I mean, yes, it's interesting to look at art made by AI or using AI tools, but I'm very interested in the art that artists are making about AI, how they see it,
Yeah.
what they think it's about. And it's a project that I've been running at for like a few years now, and like surprises happened. Like I won an arts show and came like best in show by doing an embroidery about art, about AI surveillance, about rioting.
What?
And I was like,
where can we see
okay.
this? This is amazing.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I've got it on Better Images of AI on my website, the
Okay.
Jemima Knight Studio.
Okay.
And it was, yeah, it kind of, I mean, I was surprised because I felt that it was a very respected, certainly respected by me,
Yeah.
organization,
Most important, yes.
Well, yeah, yeah. If I didn't respect it and they gave me a prize, I'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But I was shocked. In fact, the woman who was organizing this sent me an email saying congratulations on Best in Show, and what I thought she meant was it's in the show, and I was like, oh, that's great news. And then went back to her email and went, oh my God, what?
You're best in show.
What? I
That's
was like,
amazing.
crafts, But yeah,
We'll
it
put
kind
all
of blew
these
me
links
away.
we'll put all these links in your notes. Please make sure
Sure.
everybody that's listening, we're going to put all these links so you can see. Can they actually see what you
Yeah.
did for Best in Show of that? Oh, this is amazing. Okay. So we're going to put all these links in the show notes and you guys can go see it. And you can also contact Jamillah. She's so interesting on Twitter, on LinkedIn. And yeah, is there anything you want to leave us with? If so much sage like information, like things to think about here. It's the weekend, and what do you want to leave us with?
Maybe 2 things. One is,
Okay.
if you work in any form of editorial and publishing, please look at Better Images of AI. Not my one, the organization that I work with.
Yeah.
They've got a free, copyright open library, so you can use Better Images of AI and don't use the stupid robot when it doesn't fit.
Oh my God, I love that. Let's PSA number 3. Do not use the stupid robot. Use the Better Images. That's www.betterimagesofai.org. Right?
That's the one. Yep, that's the one.
Okay, we'll put that in the
And my
notes
other
too.
PSA is, it's nearly the weekend. God, have a donut. Just
yes, have a donut.
Yeah.
Well, it's morning here. It's not even noon, so I think that I will truck out of here after this and get a donut. I love that.
Breakfast food too. Anytime.
Yeah, lunch foods are good. All right, so that's good. Actually, I'm really hungry now. Thank you so much for that. Well, I can't listen from the bottom of my heart, from my real heart. Thank you so much for taking this time. It's been amazing, and I hope that you'll come back and talk to us some more about other things that come up in your life with AI. And even if you just want to muse or vent, I'm your girl.
I love that, Jennifer. It's been so nice to catch up.
Yeah, it's been too long. Thank you so much. Hey, well, this is either your favorite part of the podcast or your least favorite part of the podcast, the end. And normally I do a pretty long epilogue, but today I'm not going to because I feel like Jamallah's conversation was just so genuine. And I really hope that you enjoyed how candid she was about her journey and how she got to where she was and sharing all of her very personal thoughts about how she chose to get an AI degree and what her dreams were when she was a young lass. But I think most importantly, I really hope that you can see how strong people are and how much passion they have when they're creating their lives. I really think this is important in terms of how people are having conversations with us at Tiny Little Victories and what they're really willing to share with everybody. I love this. I have put in the notes a lot of the links that Jamillah talked about, and one of them that I think is important is this conversation we had around the use of AI images and the use of AI in art. And, it's just like they say, if you're going to drink responsibly, you got to drive responsibly. So if you're going to use AI images, please use betteraiimages.org. I've put it in the notes where you can go and get these images because this organization cares about transparency, ethical use of images, ethical use of AI, and let's support them, right? Let's start out at the very beginning of this long, turbulent AI journey with a group, an organization that is really trying to create the best environment around the use of AI images. So please check that out in the notes. Also, I would like to say thank you to a very interesting person named Axel Lundstrom. He is in Sweden and he has agreed to let us use his great music, Linkoping Bassline, as the main music in Tiny Little Victory. So clap, 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 clap. I have put the link to Axel's site in SoundCloud and also in the Free Music Archive. You can tip him if you like. I think his really groovy tunes really resonate with my groovy mind or the mind that I think is groovy. So please go check him out in the notes. And thank you, Axel, very much. Okay, so I'm going to close right now to say, please continue to listen. We're really thankful for all the listeners that we have out there. We're pretty much everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. It's pretty global, Stitcher. You can listen right here on Anchor. You can also listen on Overcast. But we'd love it if you would listen. We'd love it if you would share. And also you can leave comments, which I really like. I will answer them. There's a few. To everybody that left comments, thank you so much. And yeah, so share, like, distribute. I like that. Now, please come back next Wednesday because we have the infamous Anna Choi. And Anna's going to talk about how she changed her career from tech PR queen to a life coach. And she had to break a lot of eggs to do that, but she's going to talk about that from Seoul, South Korea. So we'll see you next week on Tiny Little Victories.